Hi, I'm John Brecken, Technical Services Director for Daubert Cromwell, the leading name in corrosion prevention. Thank you for being here today to discuss how to save your rusty parts from the scrap and save you money. Why talk about rust in a packaging conference? Well, the cost of rust on the US GDP is around $270 billion, according to a recent NACE study. And this cost of analysis omitted the labor costs of removing or reworking parts. With more and more customers demanding higher quality products entering their facilities, the tolerance for corrosion is getting tighter. So today, I want to talk to you about how to save your parts that have been succumbed to corrosion. We offer a water-based rust remover called Evapo-Rust. Evapo-Rust is an immersion product that eats the rust off your part without touching the raw metal underneath. Evapo-Rust works by chelating or grabbing just the oxides off the metal and dissolving them into solution. This powerful product has been demonstrated to de-rust up to 300 pounds of moderately rusted steel by using just 1 gallon of cleaning solution. The product is safe on multi-surfaces, will not pit unrusted steel, contains no VOC or HAPs. It's classified as a non-corrosive, meaning it doesn't contain acids or bases like other rust removers do on the market. Overall, it's a non-toxic and biodegradable. It offers safe option for saving your rusted parts. So let's go into the lab and take a look at how to use Evapo-Rust.
All right, so here we are in the lab talking to you about our Evapo-Rust rust removing product. Before I get into the demonstration, I want you to notice something about our Evapo-Rust. I have 2 buckets right here. One of them is fresh Evapo-Rust. It comes out, it's going to be a clear yellow solution. The second bucket is a bucket that I've had a part sitting in it basically overnight. And as you can see is as the rust starts to get removed and cleaned off of the part, the solution will become darker and darker. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what I'd like to do is show you a demonstration about how, although the color is different, the product is still working very nicely. So we are working with a cleaner. It's pH neutral. It's safe for your hands. But if you're going to be using it every day, all day, I recommend that you wear, obviously safety gloves, safety glasses. So what we'd like to do is I want to take a beaker of the used Evapo-Rust and a beaker of the clean Evapo-Rust. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you is I've got 2 steel coupons. I've set them up on the roof for some period of time just to get a bit of corrosion on them. I'm going to just sit them in there while we finish up the demonstration. So again, let's talk about Evapo-Rust. It's a pH neutral, biodegradable cleaning solution for rusty parts. When I say pH neutral, it's pH 7. It's, again, safe for the hands, it's non-toxic, non-irritant, and can be used in a wide variety of applications. Let's take a look at this part we've had sitting in here overnight. This was a part that was, again, heavily abused, left outside for I don't even know how many days, and was just heavily corroded. So I'm going to put my gloves on, and let's take a look at this part. Again, we let this sit basically overnight. What we want to do is, when you take a part out of Evapo-Rust, it's got a bit of the residue still on it. We just want to give it a rinse off. What you can see is, although the part is just naturally dark, there is a clear delineation between the rusted side and the clean side. Now, the clean side is now going to be your pure iron surface. The iron's going to want to react with oxygen in the water and the atmosphere, and it's going to want to go ahead and get rusty again. So how do you stop that? Well, there's 2 things that you can do. You can actually just take your rinsed off part and dip it in fresh Evapo-Rust. That'll actually provide a protective coating for, I don't know, probably up to a couple months before you got to do some extra storage on it. The other thing that you could do is utilize one of our Nox-Rust rust preventative liquids that could meet your protection needs. Okay, so while we've been sitting here just the 2 minutes, let's take a look at our coupons. This one was the fresh Evapo-Rust. We pull it out, give it a little rinse. You can see there's a nice clear, already been removing. How about the one that's been used for a little bit? Oh man, check that out. Still working excellent. So if you have rust issues, you want to clean up your parts, save money, save time, use our Evapo-Rust rust removing liquid. Let's go finish the rest of the presentation.
So sometimes you have a lot of parts or you don't have a lot of time to de-rust your product. Let's take a look at how to accelerate the process. Utilizing Evapo-Rust at 50 degrees C or 120 degrees Fahrenheit, so at a slightly elevated temperature, um, in combination with sonication, which is the use of sound waves in a solution to blast off rust, actually can accelerate dramatically the removal of rust from your process. This photo shows in process a facility that we were allowed to watch them derust one of their parts. You could see they have a very highly rusted or corroded part. They're about to put it into the basket utilizing gloves. And this was, again, held at 50 degrees. Um, and then once they put it in, they turn the sonicator on. After 2 minutes, you can see that the slight cloud of rust starts to just billow out and off of the surface of the metal. After 5 minutes, you can see that there's very little rust that's still on the part, and it's almost clean. Again, this is about 5 minutes. And at 10 minutes, when they take it out, they raise the bucket. You can see that all of the rust is completely removed, leaving a perfectly good part to be used in further processes. So we get a number of frequently asked questions regarding our Evapo-Rust product. What I'd like to do is address with you some of those right now with you. Is Evapo-Rust safe? Yes, absolutely. Again, it utilizes biodegradable, non-toxic raw materials in a water-based formulation. How long do I leave my part sitting? That's honestly dependent on the level of rust that's in your part, as well as your process. If you utilize room temperature, it could take apart, overnight. If you use elevated temperatures or sonication, like we saw in the previous example, it could be minutes. Really, we encourage people to play around with their own processes to try to streamline and um, be efficient with your time and the power of Evapo-Rust. How do I know when the Evapo-Rust is all used up? I kind of showed you a little bit in the lab. When the solution basically becomes black, you can't see through it. You'll notice that your parts will take longer to derust, or they just will stop derusting at all. It'll basically, you could also check the density. That's your sort of pounds per gallon. And that'll also tell you is when it absorbs that extra amount of iron into solution, it actually weighs more now. So if your density is around 9 pounds per gallon, then you've pretty much exhausted the lifetime of your Evapo-Rust. Is my current rust preventative or metal parts cleaner compatible with Evapo-Rust? So most water-based RPs or water-based metal cleaners utilize some similar chemistries to Evapo-Rust, or you're using them in water parts cleaner. So yes, they are compatible. I do have to warn you that some of these products involve amines or basic materials, caustic materials, which can raise the pH. Once the pH and it gets carried over from the wash bath into Evapo-Rust, well, the more you bring it into the Evapo-Rust, the more you're going to carry over, and that pH could start to creep up, 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 up. Once your pH reaches about 10 in Evapo-Rust, and remember, starts out at pH neutral, so at pH 7. So once it gets up to pH 10, you'll actually deactivate your Evapo-Rust. So it's important to try to monitor to make sure that you're not carrying over too much cleaner into the Evapo-Rust by maybe implementing a quick water rinse prior to going into Evapo-Rust if you need to. But for the most case, incidental carryover from a wash or an RP into Evapo-Rust isn't an issue. What do I do with my used Evapo-Rust? We get this one a lot. It honestly depends on two things. It depends on what has gone into your Evapo-Rust and your local laws and ordinances. So if you're the only thing that you're really cleaning are steel products, then the only thing that's in your Evapo-Rust is basically iron, right? Iron oxide. And so your local laws and ordinances will have sort of rules on how much iron can sort of go down the drain. Can I just take my used Evapo-Rust and just dump it in the drain, or dump it with my current water waste sort of system? And they'll be able to help you out with understanding that. If it's touched parts that are chromium or cadmium, those are toxic metals. So now your Evapo-Rust has to be treated as a sort of a hazardous waste stream. So that's something that you'd want to take into consideration when you're starting to clean parts. Um, Okay, so in summary, Evaporust rust remover, it's safe, it's easy to use, very easy to use to remove rust from your metal parts. It's environmentally friendly, non-toxic, non-corrosive, easy to use with, again, without expensive equipment or extraneous labor. So I want to thank you for taking your time today, and I'll happy to answer any questions that you may have, or please reach out to Daubert Cromwell. Thank you.